Hello everyone, this is Tom Thompson. I'm the mayor of San Angelo, Texas, and we want to bring to you a topic that's been brought up for discussion a lot the past, I would say probably for the past several years. We're going to talk a little bit about the airport today. As I want you to know, not only do I sit here as a mayor, I also sit here as a constituent with my other council members, Councilmember Hebert, SMD, would that be number one? And then I've got Justin Fletcher, you're our airport director. And how long have you had that position, Justin?
About a year and a half now.
So you worked for us before, then you went over to Skyline, and then when our airport director left, you stepped back in, and we appreciate you doing that.
Yes, sir.
You came back in with institutional knowledge, and the transition was not difficult. So I will say on behalf of me and the council, we appreciate you stepping in, and you've got some major compliments that you've done. I mean, we've got the South Taxiway rolling. Why don't you expand a little bit about some good things that are happening out at the airport?
Yeah, we're developing the South Taxi Lane. We got a lot going on out there. A lot of other good projects coming. Addressing some of the issues we've had in the commercial terminal with our escalators.
Yeah, I just want you to know, I just have to interrupt right now. I got more phone calls, and one of my campaign promises was I would work on getting the escalator, which I called a walk-a-lator at the airport. We would get that finished. All of the thanks to you, and in fact, I got a text message yesterday morning from Judge Carter, who got on the plane at 5 a.m., and I have a video that the escalator was working. So, Fletcher, my compliments. Job well done. Job well done.
We've got a lot of hangar development, a lot of irons in the fire. Things are just simmering in the background, ready to kick off.
So if you look at the South Taxiway, how many potential new hangars could we get out of that?
If you look at the box hangars, we're looking at potentially 16 box hangars, ranging from 100 by 100, 10,000 foot, 9,000 foot, and also 60 by 60, which can accommodate several general aviation aircraft, and also a new
We're talking pretty big corporate aircraft too.
But we're looking at Challenger 650. That's kind of our critical aircraft down on the South Taxi Lane.
That has a big footprint, but it'd be pretty cool to have one of those coming in and out of Angelo. And we look to draw that as far as corporate flight travel, not only net jets or flex jets or somebody like that, but there might be some people around here that have one, surprisingly. A lot of the Midland, Odessa corporate world flies those heavier corporate jets. It'd be great to have one. I have a friend in Big Spring who is got a mid-sized Citation, and he's looking for a place to come to that's more appropriate for where he lives. So some people may not realize it, but San Angelo is a very good stopping point, and I would say holding area for corporate aircraft and just general aviation in general.
Justin, who would we be similar to if we had some of those hangars available for it seems like Pueblo, Colorado always pops up a lot. Would that be someone we could or would compare ourselves to with respect to hangar space?
I would look at my last airport in Gulf Shores, Alabama. We had a very similar hangar development complex, and it's completely leased out with corporate aircraft, turboprops, piston aircraft. It's completely leased out. And I mean, you can look at Texas airports as well. Anywhere there's a large general aviation population of aircraft, you have the need to house those aircraft, and you have the need to develop the hangar space.
So if you had the ability, maybe not the ability, but the wherewithal to build those, you think you could get a large percentage of that leased up fairly quickly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And we have demand for T-hangar space. We have demand for hangar space. And I think this is going to get developed pretty quick. I really do.
Good.
So on T-hangars, roughly how many do we have on the grounds?
We've got 32 T-hangars
right.
on the airport, and they're all leased. That includes our executive hangars and our T-hangar spaces.
Right.
And they're all leased.
And waiting list?
Probably 40 pilots on a waiting list right now, waiting to house their aircraft here in San Angelo.
Right. But so to get into that, Tom, in case you didn't know, because I had to go through this too, you have to have a plane at the time the hangar comes open.
Okay.
You can be on the waiting list, but if you don't have a plane, technically you're not on it. There are those that do have a plane. So people that have moved here, I know the gentleman beside me moved in, and he had his plane. I forget where he kept it for the past 4 or 5, 6 months or however that transitioned in. But it's not just putting your name on the list and leaving it there. When the time comes, you have to be ready to actually execute and move in.
Okay, all right. You mentioned something, Tom. Justin, since I represent the part of town that falls within Single Member District 1, that is the airport. We're talking about this now. That's an economic development issue, is it not, for us?
Absolutely. hangar space, when we talk about leasing hangars, we're talking about a ground lease, a land lease. So as part of the airport, our most valuable asset is land. We have developable land that's tied to aeronautical infrastructure. And with that, we have the ability to lease the land that hangar is going to sit on. And so we've already got those parcels surveyed out. They're ready to go. So as soon as somebody approaches us with the need or the want to build a hangar, we're ready to go. We've got the survey. We can take it to airport board. We can take it to city council, and then we can move pretty quick to get a lease done. And we can make that efficient to get these leases executed.
So in that process, we would basically lease the land. Who would actually pay for the building?
So we lease the land, and then the individual would come in and construct the hangar.
Gotcha.
And it would be their own personal hangar that they could operate out of for the duration of the lease.
Right. How long do those leases typically run? And then what happens at the termination of the lease?
We look at a 20-year lease with 2 5-year renewal options. And at the end of the lease, there's something called the reversion clause. And at the end of the lease, the hangar reverts back to the airport as an asset that the city can then lease. That continues to generate revenue, that sustains operations.
And I would think a lot of the good core funding at municipal airports comes from their own cell phone hangars. All right. Now, these would be lease hangars, but we're making decisions not for today, the next 5 years, 10. We're also making decisions, as we like to say, for councils to come, generations to come, the next 30, 40, 50 years. We're making changes. What happens to the terminal in, say, 30 or 40 years? Where do we think it develops to?
So, in our master plan document currently goes out to 2040. And our document shows developing the east side of the airport over on runway 321. And this is really driven by Interstate 27, the Ports to Plains corridor. So as Ports to Plains starts coming through, and I think a lot of it's also tied to air service development initiatives, as we start seeing airlines come and grow here in San Angelo, we can move our commercial terminal over to the east side of 321. And there's room over there to develop and expand our air service opportunities on that side of the airport.
Which then is an even greater economic development matter issue because of the land available. You have land over there available for industrial type development, do you not?
We'd have to look on the west side of the airport. When we get more into industrial, we're looking on the west side of the airport.
Okay.
Which is a great segue into the discussion, folks, is we have a runway 9 and 27. It's a east-west runway. It's a legacy runway we've had here. From a pilot's perspective, it's very handy to have in case you get some of those straight west or straight east winds or structure. But from the numbers we have, that's less than what percentage of the time do we have one that would actually be a requirement?
3% of the time over the course of a year.
Right. So our runways that are north and south and to the northeast and the southwest, so that's 18 and 36 and 3 and 21, they cover what percentage of our flights?
As far as the wind data, we're looking at 96% coverage over 1836 and runway 321.
So nearly 97%. You've got a technical rate of 96.8.
Correct.
So less than 3% of those would not be covered, but could still land on 18 or 321.
That's correct.
Right. So I think a lot of people forget those airplanes can still land on the existing runways. It's some of those might get to a maximum wind component of getting over there, but that is few and far between. And we talked about it a little bit before we started the video, talk about when the wind gets up quite a bit, we take out the smaller aircraft as eligible for that. And it's just the heavier ones that are using the 1836, correct?
Correct.
So that number even gets lower.
Correct.
So then we're not affecting our commercial air traffic, our American Eagle, or are we?
No, sir. They're a heavier aircraft. They've got more power. They've got a larger rudder. They can withstand the crosswind components. And so they're more apt to handle the crosswinds more so than a smaller general aviation aircraft.
Okay. So that was really my question. We're probably talking more the smaller aircraft, those that are personally owned by pilots in this area.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right.
There are days where certain wind components I won't go try to fly against. There's about a 12 to 15 knot crosswind, whether I'm on 3 and 21 or 18 and 36. That's about the max I want to push. I would not feel safe going up 9 and 2.7 is handy when it's there, but once you get that crosswind component, I know several pilots that are just like, it's not worth it just to go for a recreational purpose today. Do that. So I think that's a really great segue to talk about what are the two options we have for 9 and 2.7.
There's a lot of history on this project, and it goes back to 2017. In 2017, a pavement management plan was created by our consultant engineers at the time, and our consultant engineers determined that 927 has several deficiencies. The pavement is aging. It has a very low PCN, a pavement classification number, and that PCN determines how much weight and rigidity that pavement can handle when it comes to aircraft. And it's already declining. If you look at the core samples we've taken on that runway, the core samples show shovel crevices in the asphalt. So it's bordering to the point where it's unsafe for aircraft to operate on. And so when we look at development, we look at the construction, we've talked to the FAA, and the FAA says, hey, we won't fund this as a runway, but we'll fund it as a taxiway. And so this pavement management plan, all this information was taken back to City Council. City Council made a decision in 2017 that they voted that when the funding becomes available, we would convert runway 927 from a runway to a taxiway. And that pavement management plan and that council decision since 2017 has guided airport planning and funding. And
policy, right.
And policy, exactly. So that's the process that we've gone down with our engineering consultants. We spent a lot of money. We spent $500,000 already on design and engineering to convert this pavement to a taxiway. And we have design drawings ready to go, and now the FAA's reached out to us and said they've allocated discretionary funding towards this project. And so we're looking at the very near term of going out and getting construction bids. We're going to solicit bids for this project and see where our construction budget falls when these bids come back.
Right. So, go ahead.
So I've got a question. It's really, it's a question for Justin, but something you and I sitting on the council would be interested, or at least I would be interested in. You're talking about the pavement on runway 927 is, I'm going to use the word a liability. Is that something that we as policymakers should be concerned about? Because it seems to me we should. Talk about what can or could happen in regards to liability that would affect the city.
Right. So we know we've got significant discrepancies on 927, and even the adjacent pavement, what we call Taxiway Hotel, there's a surface called Grip Flex, and they've applied Grip Flex to the top of the asphalt, and that Grip Flex is delaminating on Taxiway Hotel. So in 2022, 2021, we went in and crack sealed the entire runway, and that crack seal material went in and it started delaminating the Grip Flex from the asphalt. And so what that does is it creates FOD, foreign object debris, which if it's ingested into an aircraft engine causes catastrophic results. We could damage an aircraft engine, we could damage if it's flung up on a leading edge of a wing or a tail structure, we could damage an aircraft. And so that's stuff that as an airport operator we look for every day, FOD on the runway. And as this pavement continues to age and the asphalt begins to unravel, these are things that we look at. The potential for FOD creation and debris on the runway potentially damaging an aircraft.
So that's something you and I should be concerned about in terms of liability to the city if that were to occur, if we didn't do something about the problem we've got on 927.
Absolutely. So when people come in and they look at the NOTAMs and when they can fly into, and you always pre-check the notice to airmen, you look and see if there's anything published. You don't ever want to see one where X runway is out of service, all right? I would love it if ours always said all runways and all taxiways are open with no problems, but 927 isn't going to be able to maintain that. I asked Justin about this, just 2 or 3 weeks ago. I thought, well, what if we were to try to position it as a runway and a taxiway? And I'll let you turn your professional answer to that. What the FAA thinks of that was not great.
Well, you know, I mentioned we've already spent almost $500,000 in engineering and design drawings.
Mm-hmm.
So,
on 927?
On 927,
okay.
Yes, sir. So if we tell the FAA, hey, we're changing our mind, and this is changing 9 years of planning with the FAA, Well, the FAA could say, hey, you're taking ownership of that surface. So now the city's obligated to maintain that pavement for paving, for paint, lighting. That becomes the full responsibility of the city, and potentially reimbursing that $500,000 to the FAA. The FAA could say, you didn't fulfill the full obligation of the grant.
Understood.
Now you have to reimburse $500,000 that you've already spent.
So if the city wanted to take the burden of that runway of 927, just the initial pavement cost to redo that, not making it too much wider, but making it a decent runway, what's that number?
We're looking between $10 and $12 million just to repave it. The portion that's west of runway 1836 is going to require complete reconstruction. If you walk out on that runway today, you'll see the edges are crumbling, and that crumble's working inside to the center line, the keel of the runway, where you land your aircraft.
I land in the center, okay? I don't land on the side. I land on the center. Can't say much for some other people I know, but anyway, put a little humor back in it. But
right.
No, I mean, it does become an issue because there's times where you have to back taxi and turn around, and if you get to an edge, and you go off the pavement, I mean, it's not a big scare, but suddenly if you've got drops and you've got jagged concrete on the side, now it becomes an issue and you pop a tire. It's not a good, I've had that happen, and when you blow a tire, it's just not a good thing to have happen in an airplane on a runway.
And day to day, if you look at our airport operations, we're U.S. Customs. U.S. Customs taxis over that surface day in and day out with their unmanned aircraft. So that's part of their taxi route to get back to the customs hangar. And day in and day out, they're taxiing over that surface.
So we've been pretty much given an option here, and we've chosen, I call it the economic development option, the best way to continue this and how it best services San Angelo for long term. And talk a little bit about, I would say, economic development, or just develop it more to industrial standards.
What opens up if 927 is
just a taxiway?
Just a taxiway.
So when the runway gets converted to a taxiway, we lose those imaginary, what we call the Part 77 surfaces. There's imaginary airspace surfaces that surround that runway. And currently those surfaces prohibit us from developing because we protect the airspace around the runway. When the runway's converted, that airspace goes away because it's now a taxiway. And so now all those parcels of land just to the west on the approach into runway 9 and the north side of 927, that's almost bordering Knickerbocker, they have frontage off of Knickerbocker, those parcels become very enticing for potential development. And so as companies approach the city, they approach the airport about potentially developing at the airport, those real estate parcels look very nice, especially because they have direct aeronautical, they have infrastructure that directly ties into our aeronautical taxiways and runways.
I think that's key in the long-term development for the city.
Well, not
to keep it self-funded. I mean, our airport does a great job of self-funding, 90% of it?
Yep, we're 100%. I mean, our 100%. Revenues meet our expenses.
I wish we were all that way.
Not only that, but if we were going to assume the responsibility ourselves, we're looking at having to find $10 to $12 million. So that's another issue too.
Well, some people don't understand. We have to look at what 10 or 12 million would do for public safety.
Yes.
What it would do, health and human services. I mean, there's lots of places where 10, 12 million can serve.
There's lots of roads that still need attention.
Roads.
Yes.
I mean, how many people could benefit from that versus what we would do with just 927?
Yes.
And I hate to say it, you do have to count the number of people you serve on that either way and where the largest benefit is. And it's development towards an industrial area and industrial opportunities by far serves a lot more people.
Which can then in turn, hopefully with the economic development, return revenue to the city to do those things that you just went through there. So
absolutely. So as we look at that, I mean, the FAA doesn't want you to have a runway that is also a taxiway. They're highly against that. They don't want you back taxiing on a runway.
Correct.
And how some of those small ones get away with it. But there's two different ways to fund an airport. One's a TxDOT and one's an FAA. We're large enough and we have the commercial size that we have to be FAA funded.
Yeah, that's a big component of this conversation. We are a commercial service airport, and we do have the public that utilize our airport flying on American Airlines. And that's something to consider, especially when we look at runway safety. Runway safety is a huge conversation within the realm of the FAA. When we sit in on runway safety meetings, when we talk to the FAA, runway safety, runway safety. And when you have, and not just air carriers, when you have any aircraft back taxiing on an active runway, there's just an inherent level of risk associated with that operation. And it's converting it to a taxiway does resolve that issue.
I think it removes that from ever being a concern.
Right.
All right. When you cross 927, when you taxi, when you get clearance to taxi to go to a runway, the tower will tell you, you're going to take, go to 18 via Bravo. They will always tell you when you're going to cross an active runway. You're going to cross 927, and you have to read it back. Taxiing the 18 via Bravo, cross 927, the Alpha and the Bravo, and it would be great to not have to worry. You never think about it, and sometimes we just go over it and don't look. But every time you cross 927, you just need to pay attention. It's just good pilot mentality.
Right.
It's good airmanship to do that. And I will tell you, the sore spot for me, sometimes I go fly and do my touch and goes on Sunday morning somewhere. The wind's not blowing, I'll try to land on every runway. The people in the tower probably just get so tired of me. And I'm like, I want to set me up for this, set me up for that. And I'll play on 927. I have never had the need to use it, but a concern is if we have a front blow in and it comes in and we get a student, ASU has how many planes out there, Fletcher?
I think they're up to 25 now.
25 planes, and that can be we're one of the busiest airports in Texas, are we not?
We surpassed 122,000 operations last year. That's a busy airport.
Busy, and say less than probably 2% of those were on 927.
That's a fair assessment.
Right, and if we're on 927, we're playing. We haven't had the necessity to use it, but it's always been good to have it in your back pocket. And if it was a taxiway, you could declare an emergency and land on it.
That's true.
You could. You don't want to declare an emergency. I mean, it's like calling 911 and having something really bad happen and go, well, it really wasn't that bad. It just didn't feel like it. And that's why I called you. So, I mean, when you declare an emergency, I haven't ever had to do this, but you've probably seen people do it before. What are the post-landing steps once you declare an emergency with the FAA?
So the FSDO is going to get involved, the Flight Safety District Office. They're up in Lubbock. And so they're probably going to call, the tower's probably going to file some paperwork to the FSDO, and it's probably going to be a conversation with the safety inspector. And the FSDO is going to reach out to the pilot, and they're probably going to question, hey, what happened that day? Why did you have to land on a taxiway?
And what if you really didn't? I mean, what if they decide the action you took was inappropriate? Can they pull your certificate?
The FAA does have enforcement and compliance measures that they can employ. If
that's a better way to say it than how I said it, but there's an inherent risk to declaring an emergency. But if it's a true emergency, that's fine. So I've had several people call and say, I think it's a risk if we don't have 9-2-7. And I agree 100%. But if you're looking at something that happens, we haven't ever had that happen. I don't know how many people say I had to have it that day, but you check the weather before you come in. I left Longview one time, flew in here, and it was wind straight out of the west at 22, gusting to 36. And I was on a final that I thought took forever, all right? My little airplane was barely making 60 miles an hour.
Fighting the headwinds.
Fighting the headwinds coming in. But I knew that before I took off. I mean, your good pilot, he's going to know the weather at his destination. You have to. You have standards involved that I know I need to have at least 45 minutes of, backup fuel. You have all types of reserves built in place. I can't think of a time that I've heard somebody say, I just had to have it that one day, and they didn't know it was coming. That's certainly not the case 100% of the time, Tommy, but when you look at it, if we want to do the best thing for the future industrial park, I mean, this would open up everything to the north of 927.
Correct.
All of that area that's right beside parking and the terminal parking, all of that becomes instantly available for commercial development. Let's name the things that could be put there. If now you didn't have a plane going over with minimum standards and altitudes and distances,
right?
What all could go out there?
I mean, you're looking at industrial, any type of manufacturing or anything that might have to rely on some sort of air cargo. There's the potential for hotels, restaurants, gas stations, things that serve an airport, things that a passenger might need. Those types of businesses would thrive in an industrial park like that.
Right, and it's been a long-term goal of yours and mine for development beyond the bridge.
Yes. Well, it's something I campaigned on in 2017 was looking at every available economic development opportunity at the airport simply for economic development purposes. So we're addressing other infrastructure type things that we've got going on out there, which we, will solve. So to me, it's key that we keep the economic development foremost in our minds, even though, yes, when people think of the San Angelo Regional Airport, they probably think of, I'm going out to get on American Airlines to go to DFW. But there's more to it than that.
Yeah, just go down a list of who uses the airport in commercial business and government.
Well, government-wise, obviously U.S. Customs, they've got a huge footprint out at the airport. We see the Air Force, we see the Navy, we see a lot of military coming and going. And then there's just all kinds of corporations that come in with their corporate jets. And they stop at Ranger and they stop at Skyline, the San Angelo Jet Center, getting fuel, and then they're going on. So it's a busy airport, and we're bringing a lot of economic impact into the community, into the region, and ultimately into the state with the type of activity that we foster here at our airport.
Twice a year, the Canadians bring their Air Force down.
Huge activity for a week.
Right. And is it a week or a little bit longer than a week?
It's typically about a week, and they come down and they do all of their high performance training, all their formation flying. And, they stay in restaurants, hotels, restaurants. They service all those while they're here. So it brings revenue to the city while they operate.
Didn't we get some kind of kudos from the Canadian Air Force after? Was last year their first year, or was it second year?
I want to say we're 2 or 3 years into this now.
Yeah, we're a couple years deep.
We got some kind of, I'll say, special kudos from them, did we not? For maybe it was it flying days?
They love the hospitality of Texas, and they also love the airspace because we have such vast airspace around San Angelo. They're able to do their unusual military requests and get those requests granted through ATC because of all the airspace we have around San Angelo.
Compared to the airspace in Canada this morning, that's probably 12 degrees, and it's just not as welcoming as, we've got a cold spell. I think we're 60 in the day and might get down to 30 at night. Right. Those Canadians probably run around in shorts and flip-flops,
yes.
All right?
Yeah.
They're like, hey, this isn't a big deal for us. But it's not only them. I think the Navy's looking at bringing a group out here.
Ranger always gets interest from the Navy when they do their T6 training.
Yep.
We had a special operations division from the Army here a couple of weeks ago doing training down at the FLDS.
During the ice storm.
During the ice storm. They rode out the ice storm with us.
They rode out, and their Chinooks and everything, and I have to compliment the crew out at the Air Force because of the effort, not the Air Force, the airport. I have to compliment Justin and the crew out there because y'all did a lot of extra work on the runways, running a heater, running a blower. We actually got our airport running 1 day sooner than Abilene did.
Yeah.
And by 4 o'clock on that Monday afternoon, you made the call. All runways and all taxiways were open. I can't tell you how many people were outside of San Angelo trying to get home, which my wife was one. She was stuck in California. Stan met her. His wife was stuck in Spain. I mean, it wasn't really a bad place to be stuck, all right? But regardless, there was a lot of people that took an extra 3 or 4 days to get home. Thank goodness they were coming here. If they were going somewhere else, they probably didn't get home till Friday and Saturday, nearly a week later. But I mean, a lot of people put in a lot of good work and effort. Here's one that kind of tugs at your heart a little bit. We had a baby in the NIC unit. So tell them about that.
Yeah, we got a call right after the weather cleared. There was an infant that had to be transported to San Antonio. And we were able to work with Ranger, get some airport equipment, clear out a landing zone and enough room for a fuel truck to maneuver in. They flew the helicopter from San Antonio. They flew it to the airport. We were able to get the helicopter refueled and get the baby transported to San Antonio right after the snowstorm.
Oh, yeah. People don't you don't ever hear those hero stories, but we were taking pictures and like, what's that chopper? Well, that chopper's picking up, I don't know how many days or hours old that infant was, but because of efforts we made, the baby got out,
Right.
all right? Went somewhere that we didn't have the capability, whatever the reason they had to go, but we have the crew out there that will spend the time to do that. And to kind of bring this whole circle is, we've got an outstanding crew, we've got an outstanding location. We're just at a great spot commercially as we develop in your district. I mean, you've watched this much longer than I have from days on economic development.
And that's something we focused on. There was a hangar that the Development Corporation assisted with out there that is still fully occupied. And I think if we, had the opportunity to work with them again, we would, and
Right.
do another hangar. So yeah, it's huge from an economic development standpoint. It really is. And back to the full circle. Converting 927 is a part of that, in my personal opinion, for the economic development.
Right.
I'll say furtherment, if that's a word.
Well, Tommy, I think you nailed it. Now, would we love to have something? I mean, we would love to have another parallel runway, which means if 1-8 sit here, you'd love to have another 1-8 sit over here at the proper distance apart. You could work traffic on both sides, and it would allow you to expand your airport, also maintain it as a good training facility. There's a lot of planes that come in here just to shoot approaches and shoot them and off they go. That's a lot of revenue for the Jet Center and for basically Ranger. And if we were to develop an extra runway, which we will, it's going to take us some time. We have to acquire some property that doesn't belong to anybody that lives in Tom Green County. It actually belongs to the Washington County School District.
Right.
Not their county, it's their school district. And we need to come to an agreement with those people to try to acquire enough. We don't need all, but we just need enough to put in a parallel runway and develop what we might need in 20, 30 years.
Right.
But we could start that whole economic development push, and the more we have in there, the more emplanements, the more touch and goes. It just makes San Angelo stronger on the economic map.
Absolutely.
All right. With that, any words, anything we didn't ask? Is there a question we didn't ask that we should have asked?
I think the FAA, I think our consultants, we've all done our due diligence looking at this runway, looking at the conversion. And I know it's a controversial topic.
Oh, yeah.
It should be. We're taking an asset that served the airport, it served the community, and we're converting it to a taxiway. And I think we're still going to have a lot of life in that pavement. It's going to benefit the airport in ways we haven't even figured yet. But I think it's going to be a benefit to the airport, and we'll see it through.
Absolutely. Got some closing words there, Tommy, on what you think the development of like an industrial area will do for that district?
Oh, I think it would be huge. Now that we've gotten the trunk main that we worked on starting 4 or 5 years ago, completed and online, and that had to happen for any new development at the airport
Absolutely.
to be able to happen. So that is now available. Then we've got a couple other issues that we're working on out there that are going to be solved. But the economic development potential I think for probably any airport of our size is huge for the community to then help further strengthen your tax base.
Oh, I would say, just to sum it up, if we keep it in the eligible criteria to always be FAA funded, keeps it out of the citizens' taxpayers' pocket, all right, it can grow and develop at a pace, and it can scale without a further cost on the citizens. The converting 927 to a taxiway does that.
Yeah.
All right, me as a pilot, I'm going to hate not having it there, but I used it for fun.
Right.
And if the winds were that bad, I wasn't planning on coming in. All right, and I have heard from many people that have talked about that. I mean, people that have thousands of hours. You're going to wish you had that. And in my mind, I want to go, then that'll be the time to call an emergency. We had a sudden front come in. I got stuck. It moved through 3 hours before it should have, or 6 hours before it should have. I was still able to get safely on the ground and use it as a taxiway. I know I had to file it as emergency, but in the end, we want to provide a safe airport with, I was fixing to say, that equally distributed itself for the development of San Angelo.
And limits the city of San Angelo's liability to the
Absolutely.
extent we can, yes.
Absolutely. So with that, we'll kind of bring all this into an end. I'd like to say thank you, Tommy Hebert, single member District 1.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Justin, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for doing a wonderful job as the airport director past couple of years. We couldn't be happier. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
With that, this is Mayor Tom Thompson. Thank you.